The gavel cracked like a gunshot in the stuffy high school gym, and the judge's voice boomed over the microphone. And the state championship for debate goes to Lincoln High. My heart slammed against my ribs as Carlos's name echoed through the cheers. Carlos, my secret anchor, my everything, standing tall on that stage with his perfect smile, the one I'd kissed under the bleachers just hours before. But as our eyes met across the divide, his gaze wasn't one of shared victory. It was cold, calculating, like I'd been nothing more than a stepping stone to his crown. I bolted from the front row before the applause could swallow me whole, shoving through the crowd of sweat-soaked uniforms and proud parents, my debate binder spilling notes like confetti from a broken dream. Outside, the Indiana autumn air hit me like a slap, crisp leaves crunching under my sneakers as I ran toward the cornfields bordering our nowhere town of Greenfield, tears blurring the taillights of the buses pulling away without me. That night, I packed a duffel with everything that fit. My worn-out copy of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, a faded photo of my abuela from back in El Salvador, and the silver chain Carlos had slipped around my neck last summer, whispering it was our promise. By dawn, I was on a Greyhound bound for Chicago, 18 years old and gutted, vowing never to look back at the boy who'd traded our love for a trophy. Little did I know that betrayal would forge me into someone unbreakable, or so I told myself for the next 2 decades. Greenfield had always felt like a pressure cooker disguised as heartland charm. Friday night lights under endless skies, diners slinging apple pie and gossip in equal measure, and a community that preached, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, while quietly judging anyone who didn't fit the mold. Growing up queer in that Bible Belt bubble was like dancing on razor wire. My parents, immigrants who'd fled civil war for factory jobs, loved me fierce but blind. Dad with his calloused hands fixing engines at the auto plant. Mom stitching uniforms late into the night, both whispering prayers in Spanish that I'd find a good girl someday. They didn't know about the stolen moments in the back of Carlos's pickup, parked by the Wabash River, where we'd trace constellations and dream of escaping to a city that didn't care who we loved. Carlos Rivera was the golden boy. Star quarterback, debate team captain, valedictorian in waiting, with olive skin, dark curls that begged to be tugged, and eyes like polished obsidian that could make you forget your own name. We met freshman year in English class, bonding over our shared Salvadoran roots. His family from San Salvador, mine from a village outside Santa Ana. He'd tease me about my poet soul while I ragged on his jock brain. But beneath it, there was fire. By junior year, we were inseparable, stealing kisses in the shadows of the grain silos, whispering futures where we'd both go to Northwestern on scholarships, build a life in the Windy City where rain-slicked streets hid our hands intertwined. The state debate tournament was supposed to be our pinnacle. We'd prepped for months, turning my lyrical arguments into his razor-sharp rebuttals. A perfect yin-yang. I poured my soul into those speeches, drawing from Whitman's raw humanity to argue for immigrant rights, my voice cracking with the weight of stories I'd never told aloud. Carlos would nod from across the table, his foot brushing mine under the desk, a silent, "I got you." But whispers started circulating weeks before. Scouts from Ivy Leagues sniffing around, college reps dangling full rides. Pressure mounted like storm clouds over the flatlands. The night before the finals, in the dim motel room our team shared outside Indianapolis, he came to me. The air smelled of chlorine from the pool and stale coffee from the lobby. We lay tangled on the lumpy bed, his breath warm against my neck. "Santiago," he murmured, fingers tracing the chain I'd wear forever. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we're in this. You and me against the world, right?" I believed him, God, how I believed him, because in that moment with the highway humming outside, he was my world. But betrayal doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It slithers in quiet. During the final round, our topic was resolved. Affirmative action perpetuates division. I opened strong, weaving personal anecdotes of my parents' struggles into a call for equity that left the judges leaning forward. Carlos followed, building on it seamlessly until his closing. A pivot so sharp it sliced me open. He reframed my empathy as naive idealism, arguing for meritocracy alone, pure, unyielding, the kind that favored the self-made over the handout seekers. It was brilliant, devastating, and utterly at odds with every late-night talk we'd had. He won the round, the tournament, the scholarship to Yale. I placed third. Forgotten. In the chaos of victory, as confetti rained and cameras flashed, I cornered him in the hallway. What the hell was that? My voice was a whisper shout, fists clenched to keep from shaking. His face hardened. The boy I'd loved replaced by a stranger in a Letterman jacket. It's debate, Santi. You gotta play to win. You think Yale cares about sob stories? This is my ticket out. I yanked the chain from my neck, the clasp biting into my palm. And I was just practice? He glanced over my shoulder at his teammates chanting his name, then back at me with eyes that pleaded and pierced. Don't make this harder. We both knew it couldn't last here. He walked away, swallowed by the crowd, leaving me hollowed out in the fluorescent buzz. That Greyhound ride to Chicago was my rebirth, or so the therapy sessions later called it. The city swallowed me whole. Towering loop skyscrapers like sentinels, the L train rattling overhead like a mechanical heartbeat, Lake Michigan's endless blue mocking my small-town scars. But Chicago has a way of grinding you down and building you back fiercer. I channeled the hurt into advocacy, volunteering at a queer youth center, where kids like me shared stories under rainbow flags. There, I found my voice again, not in debate halls but in city council meetings, pushing for inclusive curricula in CPS schools. A mentor, a no-nonsense black trans activist named Lena, saw the fire in me. Boy, you've got the scars of a survivor, she'd say, handing me a stack of petitions. Use them. I did. By 25, I'd earned a poli-sci degree from UIC, bootstrapped my way into a nonprofit lobbying for LGBTQ+ rights, and met Javier, steady, kind Javier, with his easy grin and lesson plans for teaching ESL. We built a life. A walk-up in Logan Square, Sunday dim sum, adoption papers for our daughter Rosa. He knew about Carlos, the chain I'd melted down into her first necklace. Healing's not linear, mi amor, he'd murmur on tough nights. The years blurred into milestones. Leading campaigns that decriminalized sodomy laws in red states, testifying before Congress on marriage equality, watching the Supreme Court light up rainbows in 2015 from a DC bar with tears streaming. Betrayal's sting faded to a dull ache, replaced by purpose. I became Santiago Morales, Executive Director of Equality Midwest, a name whispered in activist circles from Milwaukee to Memphis. Then came the call, 20 years to the month after that gym in Indiana. My assistant buzzed me in our Chicago office overlooking the river. Santiago, it's from D.C. Senator Rivera's office. The name hit like vertigo. Carlos, no longer the quarterback, but Indiana's junior senator, swept in on a wave of moderate populism, all polished suits and bipartisan smiles. I'd avoided the news clips, the profiles touting his rags-to-riches arc from Greenfield kid to Capitol Hill power broker. But there it was, an invitation to the National Achievement Awards for Civic Leaders, where he'd be keynoting. For your work on the Youth Empowerment Act, the aide said crisply. The senator specifically requested you. I almost declined. Javier squeezed my hand over breakfast, Rosa giggling at her cereal. Go, he said. Close the loop. For you. So I flew into Reagan National, the Potomac glittering below like a vein of silver, and stepped into the Kennedy Center's Eisenhower Theater, heart pounding harder than it had in decades. The auditorium hummed with Washington's elite. Diplomats in tuxes, activists in power blazers, the air thick with Chanel and ambition. I sat mid-row, fidgeting with my program, until the lights dimmed and Carlos ascended the stage. Older, yes, silver threading his curls, lines etching his jaw like fault lines, but still magnetic, his voice a deeper timbre now, honed by Senate floors. He spoke of bridging divides, quoting Whitman in a nod that twisted my gut. Then the nominees, educators, innovators, me. As my name flashed on the screen, clipped footage of me rallying in Springfield, Rosa's face blurred for privacy. Carlos paused, his eyes finding mine across the footlights. Santiago Morales, he said, and the room stilled. A son of immigrants, a voice for the voiceless, who turned personal loss into a legacy of love and justice. In Greenfield, we learned early that competition sharpens us, but it's compassion that defines us. Santi showed me that long before I had the words. His voice cracked, just once, raw as the boy I'd known, and the audience leaned in, sensing the undercurrent. He extended the plaque, not as a senator, but as Carlos, vulnerable, the chains echo in his steady gaze. I rose, legs leaden, and climbed the steps. Our hands met over the award. His warm, calloused from handshakes, mine steady from years of holding signs and hearts. Up close, the footlights hid nothing. Regret in his wrinkles, pride in his posture. I was a fool, he whispered, too low for mics, as flashes popped. You were always the winner. I didn't pull away. We both were, eventually. Backstage, amid the whirl of congratulations, we stole a moment by the velvet curtains. No embraces, just words, heavy with what-ifs. He spoke of his own ghosts. A loveless marriage for the optics. A daughter who asked why dad's eyes go far away in photos. Divorce papers filed last month. He admitted, the closet door creaking open at last. I watched you from afar, Santi. Your fights became mine. Quietly, through votes I cast in your name. Betrayal's scar itched, but so did forgiveness, that humanistic grace Mom prayed for. I thought of Greenfield's cornfields, now distant as yesterday, of Javier waiting at O'Hare with takeout tacos, of Rose's necklace glinting like a talisman. It's not about erasing the hurt, I said. It's about building from the rubble. He nodded, eyes glistening. Senator's perks. I can make calls. Let's get that act funded, together as allies. No rekindled flames, no dramatic reunion. Just two men, queer and scarred, choosing humanity over grudge. As I boarded the flight home, the award heavy in my lap, Chicago's skyline rose like a promise kept. Competition had broken me once, but recognition? It mended nothing and everything. In America's messy mosaic, we'd all lost and won. Carlos on that stage, me in the shadows, and now, side by side in the light. The hook of youth's pain had released. In its place, a story worth telling, one debate at a time.